Are you constantly missing your smoke lineups, flashing your teammates, or even dying to your own mollies like Summit? Well, look no further because I have the cure for you. But unfortunately, we're gonna have to do some thinking. Here's the truth. Most people aren't bad at throwing util because they don't know lineups, they're bad because they don't know why they're throwing util or they throw them for the wrong reasons. So to stop us from wasting $1,000 every round and blinding our teammates who are about to get a pick, we should stop and think about what each piece of util actually does. Smokes are not walls. They are not hard cover that stops bullets, and they do not prevent people from walking through them. If you throw a smoke, do not be surprised if an enemy runs right through it and shoots you in the back of the head because you have the object permanence of a goldfish. All a smoke does is block vision. They can be blown open, lurked or run through, and faded. So, what should we use smokes for? To deny info and delay pushes. Use smokes like the window and top and instant smokes in Mirage to deny the CTs from spotting you and figure out how you're playing the map. The cross smokes on Nuke are another great example. CTs have to either gamble on how many, if anyone at all, cross down into secret, or they have to use their own grenades to either pop the smokes open or delay the walk down with a molly. This isn't to say lineups are the only way to throw effective denial of info smokes. Oftentimes, late round and in clutches, throwing a smoke on a bomb site so you can play around it or bait on a fake plant is another great use of a smoke. We should also discuss lurk smokes. They are fairly niche and not too common in casual pugs. I think the most you might see is a B main lurk smoke on Anubis or a ticket booth smoke on Mirage, but throwing a lurk smoke is a great way to apply pressure on a position and to threaten that you are about to make a play, as they block the opponent's view of a common choke point and force them to gamble on which side, if at all, you're going to push through. Despite smokes only providing concealment and not cover, they are still effective at blocking most pushes. Pushing through a smoke is risky because you don't know what's on the other side, so in most cases, people won't do it, and it's not a bad decision to use them to stop a push. However, it is worth noting that in these cases, although they're only up for a short amount of time, a molly is much better at stopping a push than a smoke. One last thing before we move on. If you're an opper, don't use smokes. Okay, well, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. But if you're holding an angle against the enemy and you have to give it up for some reason, either because you shot or you need to rotate, don't throw your smoke. By leaving the angle open, you threaten that you're still holding it or can repeak it at any moment, whereas if you do throw your smoke, you're just letting them know that you left it. It's a small mistake, but it is worth mentioning. Flashes are easily some of the most misused pieces of util and can have devastating effects if you miss them, so listen up unless you want to get screamed at by your unemployed IGL in your pug who has been doom queuing for 16 straight hours. Flashes are used for three main things: to get a pick, to blind someone off an angle, and to delay a peek. Flashing for a pick can be done in two different ways. They are either self-flashes like this neat god flash for your B anchor on Anubis, or they are thrown by a teammate so you can swing for a kill. There's a million different lineups for a million different spots on each map, so it's always a good idea to have a few in your back pocket to use on each map. These are the sexy flashes that create highlight clips, but are also the easiest way to piss off your entire team when you miss. Instead, you might want to throw a flash that simply blinds someone off an angle. While these don't show up as flash assists in the scoreboard, these are still extremely effective and important to throw. If you're at a weapon or position disadvantage, throwing a flashbang that gets the enemy to momentarily leave the angle is a great way to close the gap or even the fight. This is also one of the best ways to counter an op holding an angle. If you're trying to scale long on Dust 2 when an op is holding you, try throwing a flash like this so you can get control of the angle and make the repeak very risky. Alternatively, if you're on cat, throw a flash like this to blind the opper off game helper, then chase them down for an easy kill. Now, flashing to delay a peek, I guess you could say is the same as flashing someone off the angle, but this is my video and I make the rules, so I'm saying they're different. Flashes like this are typically the standard default util you throw every round. The best example I can think of is the Mirage mid castle flash. This flash prevents the Ts from just recklessly running down mid, and is particularly useful when you have teammates jumping down into underpass or jumping onto cat, as it gives them just an extra second to get into position without being spotted. Now, the frag grenade can be your best friend if you just learn to maximize its use. While it does make a dope ass sound when you dunk on someone, there's a lot more you can do with it than just deal damage. One of the greatest changes from CSGO to CS2 in my opinion is the ability to blow open smokes with a frag. This gives both CTs and Ts so many more plays and counters to add to their playbook. Popping open a smoke so you can peek and catch the enemy when they're not looking at you is always a good strat. You can also pop open the smokes as a T when the CTs try to block you and use that as a way to even the odds when entrying. A common strat on Anubis is actually for the tees to throw a smoke into aim in like this, and then when you get control of it with your team, blowing open your own smoke and spilling out onto the bomb site. You can also blow open a smoke on a defusing CT and make him more exposed than Deshaun Watson at a massage parlor. Now, I'm sure most of you already knew about the blowing open smoke mechanic, but a mistake I see a lot of people make is in how they throw the frag. What you do not want to do is throw it like this, where it bounces all over the ground and reveals your plan, giving your opponent enough time to react. Instead, throw the grenade more into the air like this, so it pops before hitting the ground. It seems minor, but learning to do this properly will result in so many more free kills and rounds for you. Frags can also be used to momentarily obscure your player model. The most common use for this is on Dust 2 if the tees have a particularly fast opper. Throwing a frag off the wall like this can help you not get tagged while crossing, but you can also use it for getting across big gaps like the one on the long do ramp cross. Now, we can't move on to mollies until we discuss how we should be using our frags to deal damage. There's really nothing wrong with dealing chip damage to a player, so they take one less shot to put down. However, to maximize effectiveness, we either want to wait and use our frags in common spots people group up in, so we deal damage to as many people as possible, nade stack specific locations with our teammates so we can guarantee a kill, or yeet a frag at a low opponent hiding to finish them off. Like I said, if you want to throw a grenade at top mid like this, it's fine, but most likely you'll get a better opportunity later in the round to either deal more damage or to pop open a smoke. Now, mollies, or incendiary grenades for my distinguished viewers, have two purposes: to stop pushes and to deny positions. Now, your use of them will typically depend on whether you're attacking or defending, and I say attacking and defending and not CT&T, as in post-plant scenarios, the reasons you should be using each of them change. As a defender, use mollies to stop pushes. This can come in the form of CTs preventing Ts from rushing a site, or Ts delaying in a retake. They are in the same situation as smokes, where they will never guarantee to stop someone from charging through them, but in most cases, they will buy you time, and if not, hey, at least you did some damage. Now, the CT incendiary grenade is much smaller and worse than the T molly, and it's important to take note of what you have, as it can change how a round plays out. If a CT manages to get control of a T molly, drop it to the player who is most likely to experience a rush. For example, on Inferno, they should always be swapping it with one of the B defenders, as banana is the most common spot for a rush, and the extra damage makes a rush by the T's suicide. Switching over to the attackers, flush out and deny positions with your mollies. Prevent CTs from holding strong positions behind cover and bring them out into the open where you can nail them with flashes and bullets during an execute. And as a CT in a retake, clear out Ts hiding in difficult to clear angles and force gunfights. Of course, there are still situations on attack and defense where you might want to flip while you're using a molly, like for example as a CT if you get a T stuck in a corner, or on T side if you might want to just molly the bomb to deny a fuse, but I'm just giving you the basic theory. On to the red-headed stepchild of the grenade family. The decoy has three uses. It creates a ton of noise, it can be used as a fake flash, and it wastes your money. You can use a decoy to conceal your footsteps in a rush, or to fake like you're somewhere where you're not, but honestly, this doesn't really ever fool anyone. The only good use of a decoy is to use it as a fake flash, but even then, I don't think you should ever buy them unless it's the last round of the half and you don't have enough money for a flash. The $50 you waste here and there on decoys adds up, and like a poor kid on Christmas, you'll find out you can't afford things everyone else has. Now that we know all the basics of util, it's important to remember that while you throw your nades, the enemy is still playing. They will swing you when you have your nades out, so it's important to do it from a safe location if possible. The last thing you want to have happen is to have a low HP enemy get a free pick on you in the clutch because you pulled out a grenade in the open. Util also gives away your position. A big reason a lot of these insane smoke fakes you see on YouTube Shorts suck is because you can actually spot them from a mile away and tell that the enemy is just trying to trick you. Denial of info is also a huge reason people recommend not throwing util in 1v1s, as the second you pull up in on a grenade, you're telling the enemy exactly where you are and that you don't have your gun out. I hope that me explaining all the different uses for the different nades shows you just how many possibilities and plays are open to you, and that you don't need to know a ton of lineups and you can just throw effective util on the fly as long as you know the reason behind it and you're not just throwing it to throw it. Getting better at your util is not as sexy as training your aim, but it does produce results. It helps you get small advantages here and there that add up as the match goes on. It helps apply pressure on uncoordinated teams. It can alleviate stress when you're up against strong opponents. The best way to train your util is honestly watching pro demos, then trying it out on an offline server and eventually in game. This way you see what util is actually good and you don't just waste your time learning completely useless smokes from YouTube Shorts. What I found works best for me is to screenshot when I see a pro throw something cool, then drop it into a spreadsheet for me to review and practice later. Before we end the video, if you live in NA and you want to play in a real CS2 team for free, consider joining the league I run, EPE. Signups are now live. It doesn't matter your skill level, everyone's welcome. There are placement matches to determine your skill level, and you get drafted to teams. It's a really fun thing. Consider checking it out. It's now live. Peace.